On this episode, we discuss Kraven the Hunter.
No prey is too powerful for Kraven. In this movie, he kills an entire family of non-Spider-Man related movies.
That's pretty good.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Flophouse. I'm Dan McCoy.
I'm Stuart Wellington.
And I'm Elliot Kalin. And wait, do you guys feel that in the air?
Mm-hmm.
A sort of sense of endless
Yeah.
possibility, a rush of pure joy and excitement, the
Yep.
anticipation that someone of the three of us will spend today asking other people for money. Yes, all those things and more, because it's
my
Max
God.
Fun Drive, everybody. Yay!
Woo!
It's Max Fun Drive, the one time of the year when Max Fun shows celebrate those generous, brilliant, and sexually attractive listeners who become members of Max Fun.
Whoa.
And we remind them, Dan, are you saying they're not attractive? And we
I'm
remind
not
them,
saying anything
and we remind those
strategically.
and we remind those members that the only reason this show exists at all is because you generous, brilliant, sexually attractive Max Fun member, you support it for at least $5 a month or more. We'll talk more about the Max Fun Drive, what it means to us, what it means to you. But if you just can't wait to become a member or upgrade your membership, you can find out more at MaximumFun.org/join.
Yeah, in honor of our founder, Maxwell Fun.
Mm-hmm.
Maxwell Funker Bean of the Funky Winker Beans. The name was scrambled at Ellis Island. Yeah.
So we're doing, what do we do here on
This
this?
is a podcast
Yep.
Oh,
where we
right.
watch a movie that has either the audiences or the critics rejected or both.
Or
And
neither.
we talk about it. And, of course, as we announced, because of Max Fun Drive, we're doing our special theme month, which is No Spider-Mans.
Movies that do not feature
Movies
any Spider-Man.
Featuring no Spider-Man. And
do we
this
want
one-
to mention each of the movies that we'll be doing as part of this series?
Yeah, of course, there's Kraven the Hunter, the one we're talking about now, Venom, The Last Dance, and Heartbeats.
Heartbeat. Classic Paul Schrader directed
no-
slice
Heartbeats.
of...
Starring Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters, and it fits the theme. There's no Spider-Man in it.
Still
Certainly.
one of the most baffling bits to me, why it was decided that Heartbeats was Paul Schrader.
This is one of my favorite
It's all
Stuart
gonna
bits.
it's all gonna make sense when we watch it.
Okay, it'll be look for that, listener, a perfect payoff to this long
Because it's going to turn out Heartbeats is about a robot who falls in love and keeps a journal and kills somebody or tries to kill somebody at some
and
point. Yeah.
strap some bombs to him
but
to save the environment.
Yeah,
That's
to the
what he
environment.
does.
this is
As happens in every Paul Schrader movie. Well, one I can think of, but
This is a movie, of course, particularly notable for its lack of Spider-Man. It's part of Sony's, hey, we don't have the rights to Spider-Man per se universe. And so, they've been trying to make all this happen.
But they own a lot of names and some kind of like vague
There's
relational
rumors of a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
they have. So Sony has the rights to the Spider-Man family of characters that fall under it. But they have made an agreement with Marvel, or with Disney rather, that Spider-Man himself would appear in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. What does that mean? It means they got to create their own universe of all these other characters whose only reason for existing in the comics is because they fight Spider-Man.
And they also have to flip them all into, at least anti-heroes.
Yeah, lethal
Yes.
protectors.
And they were the original plan. I don't know when they dropped this plan, was to make a Sinister Six movie where these characters would all kind of come together. But again, the Sinister Six is a team that only exists to kill Spider-Man. That's all that they do.
I mean, I would argue every single one of these characters is defined by their relationship to Spider-Man and are made more interesting by that.
Yes.
And when removing a Spider-Man, they become kind of bland.
It's very it's like if you it's
With the
like
exception of Madam Web, which is a perfect movie.
which is wonderful and is not doesn't in any way feel like it's missing a connection to Spider-Man.
Also,
Madam Web.
does
even
not
though
fit
Spider-Man
this
is
theme because Spider-Man's in that.
because in the movie because Peter Parker is born in that movie. But
I
it's
was just
a little
thinking
bit,
that
Yeah.
to remove a Spider-Man sounds like a lost Harper Lee novel.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's I was going to try to come up with another example of like how you could try to remove the central, most essential character from a world and then try to make something around it. And I feel like there's some places you can do it. Star Wars at one point you were able to do that.
Yeah,
you know?
you just yank Godot out of that bitch, and it's going to be tons of fun.
That's what happened.
Well, so you do the Vladimir movie, the Estragon movie, you do the Pozzo movie, and then they all come together finally in the Waiting for Godot movie.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like, how did Pozzo get that servant who talks in those weird speeches? We don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name, the character. But I believe that Stuart, you'll be doing the summary day for Kraven the Hunter. First, should we talk at all about our relationship to the character of Kraven the Hunter? Did you guys?
I was going to ask you to do this.
Okay.
So as I mentioned in a most likely deleted pre-show bit, my relationship with Kraven is mainly like I was a big Spider-Man fan, not as big as Elliot, obviously.
No one is. Well,
but I've read all the Sinister Six stuff. I read a bunch of his various appearances, including Kraven's Last Hunt, which is kind of like is one of the great Spider-Man stories.
Yes.
In my opinion. And I was looking up, and apparently it started its life not a Spider-Man story. It started out as a Wonder Man story, which is kind of funny.
Well, even before that, it was originally it was pitched as a Batman story to DC, and by the writer of it, J.M. DeMatteis, I think was the writer of it, and then he brought it over and made it a Spider-Man Kraven story. But it's so good that you kind of wonder how it could be a story for any other character. Because it fits so well into the Spider-Man themes and the Kraven themes. Here's the thing, though. I would call Kraven's Last Hunt perhaps the one great Kraven story. And if you were being a real stickler, maybe the one good Kraven story, which is not fair. Since then, there have been a couple of good Kraven stories. There was one called The Grim Hunt for that years ago that I actually enjoyed a lot, and Kraven for a little while became a supporting character in the Squirrel Girl comic, where he was like a more positive version of himself. But up until Kraven's Last Hunt,
which would probably fit as a lead in a movie better than what we get.
Squirrel Girl or that
no,
version
I mean
of Kraven?
like that version of Kraven, like a more positive, like slightly silly. I'm assuming.
Yeah, he's a slightly silly. He's still Kraven, but he cares about the environment, and that's where he and Squirrel Girl, share a common bond.
He can't stop Kraven.
But I would say until he's crazy. He loves White Castle. He's always getting those crave sacks.
Was there a movie tie-in? Call up Matt Singer. Was there a movie tie-in with White Castle for this thing?
I don't think so. Yeah, they had it was a crave sack of 10, and each one had a different animal's meat in the burger.
I love that.
But are there any particular Dan fans out there who are dismayed by how little I've been talking? I'm just letting these two run because. They're trying to work themselves out,
here's the last thing I would say about Kraven. Until Kraven's Last Hunt, he's in my opinion at least, he's a pretty mediocre character. He's the idea of this big game hunter. He's the kind of guy who goes out and captures animals. He's always looking for the biggest thing.
He looks like a really cool wrestler.
Yes,
also.
And he's a silly character. Even in his earliest appearances, I think is kind of a silly character.
Yeah.
And the idea, I'm just kind of baffled by which Spider-Man characters they chose for these movies, because it feels like, except for Venom, who's hugely popular, it feels like they kind of went out of their way at times to pick characters who they could graft onto pre-existing story formats rather than characters that had a lot of name recognition or a big fan base or even were cool characters. This is me. I've never found Kraven a cool character, partly because of his clothes. He wears these funny tight capri pants and these little slip-on shoes, and he has a vest that seems to be made out of a lion's face, which I don't know how you do that. But Stuart,
it's very cool. He looks like a wrestler.
He does look like a wrestler.
Now, before there's one other Kraven story I do want to talk about. Dan?
Oh, no. I thought you were. No, I didn't know if you were leaving this topic at all, because I wanted to say my relationship to the character as I was queried, and it is that I read the Wikipedia plot summary of Kraven's Last Dance when I discovered that Kraven's Last
Dance.
Kraven's Last Dance.
The dance between him and Vermin.
Mary Kraven's Last Dance. No, when I learned that this was going to be a character that a movie was going to be made about, I was like, okay, what's the deal with this Kraven? And that's the main thing that got referenced. So I was like, okay.
Well, he unalives himself because he killed Spider-Man, he thinks? That's nuts.
Yeah,
but that's the thing is, Kraven's Last Hunt is the defining moment for this character. Spoilers for the comic storyline, the 40-year-old storyline, Kraven's Last Hunt. The defining moment for this character is when he kills himself, having succeeded in defeating Spider-Man, he thinks, in his mind. So that it's always a problem when your supervillain turned anti-hero's defining moment in the comics is when he takes his own life rather than like does a cool thing, or does something impressive, So
well, that shows courage of his convictions. Now, and
I don't think so.
But then for me, like I didn't initially, I didn't initially get to Kraven's Last Hunt. My first. I'd been exposed to Kraven before, but also it was the
in a public bathroom. Yeah.
Yes, it was the Spider-Man, the new Todd McFarlane Spider-Man series, the first arc, the Torment arc
with Calypso,
introduces Calypso and also introduces like moments of visions of Kraven as like a zombie guy.
So Calypso was a pre-existing character before that storyline, but so little had been done with her. I feel like that Todd McFarlane kind of made her his own in that, but that's the one where like the lizard becomes a servant of Calypso, right? And all that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And I don't remember it being like particularly good, but it was like, it's classic McFarlane. There's webs all over everything.
Yeah.
There's like every
Spider-Man's
panel's
constantly
made out of
contorting
webs.
himself.
Let's move into discussion of the movie, a thing that I know something about.
Yeah, let's go. Let's jump into this.
So wait. I just want to say, if people think, Elliot's going to dump on this because he hates Kraven the way he hates Morbius, no. Kraven was never one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, but he was never so far down at the bottom as Morbius, or as I've mentioned, my least favorite Spider-Man villain, Molten Man. Continue.
But Elliot, at the end of the episode, I'm going to have to ask you
for a definitive ranking.
We're doing definitive ranking after Venom, I'd imagine.
Oh, I see.
But I was going to say, think of any Spider-Man Rogues Gallery characters who would make good solo movie, non-Spider-Man related.
I'm going to try to think about it. That's a tough one. That's a hard one.
Okay, so movie begins. We have a bunch of logos. The movie opens with a prison transport truck driving through Siberia, heading to an isolated prison. Stowed aboard this truck, in disguise, is our hero, Kraven the Hunter. He gets taken into the prison. He meets his new roommate, who's a large man who seems to suffer from some kind of deformity, which I'm not always happy with, that it's constantly like, hey, isn't the joke is the guy's got some deformity. So he,
I think he's supposed to look like a big threatening guy.
Yes. He picks a fight with some gangsters in order for them to take him to their leader, who the lead gangster is like arms dealer operating out of the prison. Turns out he reveals that was his plan all along. He wanted to be captured because he's a hunter, and he kills this gangster, like Rorschach style. Doesn't kill him Rorschach style, but, the locked up in here with me sort of thing.
Yeah.
So he kills this gangster with a tooth from a tiger carpet, a tiger fur carpet. And then
which he had foolishly been allowed to keep in his jail cell. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like the guy is basically, he's one of those like criminal masterminds who is in prison more for the protection of being in prison and less as a impediment.
Yeah, I could see that.
So he kills this guy, and then he escapes using superhuman parkour skills.
Now, Elliot, as I said, I was not a Kraven connoisseur. I did not know anything about this gentleman other than presumably he hunted.
Yeah, as said in the title, yeah.
Tracking down information online, correct me if I'm wrong. So in the comics, it's not like Kraven has like these like animal powers. He has a serum that gives him strength, basically, and he's just a good hunter.
He has kind of like potions and like, he knows the secrets of the jungle that can enhance your abilities in some way. There's always like kind of berries or herbs you can take in comic books that make you a slightly tougher person. But the idea that he could... There are parts of this movie where he is essentially just running along sheer walls, as if gravity doesn't affect him, and that's
like
not a thing,
and not being damaged at all.
And the fact that he gets so knocked around in this movie, and it doesn't hurt him at all, and that is not the Kraven I know. And also he has super zoom vision, which I don't believe Kraven has. I don't remember that. And his
eyeballs become like lion eyeballs.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So there's in this movie, he is clearly the product of an unholy combination of some kind of voodoo and also lion blood, as we'll see later. And so that gives him the amazing powers to do superhuman things. But in the comics, he's one of these many characters who is the serums they take put him at peak human condition, like Captain America, or something like that, as opposed to the man with the power of the animals. That would be Animal Man, a DC character.
Yeah.
Although most, peak humans I know get crushed under like rubble that falls.
That's true. Most of them, when they're exploded, it hurts them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in this movie, he's presented as basically like a slightly tougher than Captain America type character.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So he escapes using these super abilities. He runs off into a giant snowstorm. He faces down a really cool CGI wolf. And then he boards a waiting cargo plane that is piloted by a pilot friend who we never really see ever again.
And I didn't know if this was a reference.
She shows up again, but
Yeah, he just has like a pilot on call, and I think this is supposed to be making him seem like kind of a cool James Bondy type who has like a network of support people or something, or just a pilot that he can talk to regularly, but nothing is made of this character. I don't know if this is a character loosely based on anyone in the comics, the way that a lot of the others are. It just seems like an easy way for him to get around, is he just Indiana Jones style has a friend with a plane.
He can like pop around the world.
Yeah.
At will.
Like Orville Redenbacher, he's popping around the world.
He is. That's not the only similarity. We'll get to that, though. Okay, so, guys, you know what time it is?
It was originally called Kraven the Popcorn. Yeah.
It's
what time is it?
For a little bit of a flashback. Now, this is a long movie. There's like, it's over 2 hours.
It's over 2 hours. It's too long.
But similar to its lead actor, there is not an ounce of fat on this thing.
I think that is not necessarily
Aaron
true.
Taylor Johnson
I was gearing up to make, but
Aaron Taylor Johnson is sliced up. He is shredded. For a guy who's described as nature's perfect predator, I'm like, if this guy has any sugar, it will fuck him up.
Yeah,
he is too skinny.
You have to imagine, if he was lost in the woods or the jungle and did not have access to food, he would die. Like his body has no stores of energy to draw on.
He needs to eat like 7 little protein-packed meals a day. He has to like have a meal at 4 a.m. just to survive.
Just to keep going. He's like a little baby. When little babies, they literally can't hold enough food in their body to last through the night. That's which is speaking of Aaron Taylor Johnson, that was one of the fun jokes in The Fall Guy when Ryan Gosling is making jokes about how this guy is too skinny. He needs to eat carbs. Your body needs glucose to survive, etc. Okay, so flashback 16 years. We meet Sergei and Dmitry Kravenov, 2 brothers, well, half-brothers, who are attending an American prep school. They are taken out of school because their mother has died. She's committed suicide.
Now, I want to
ask
ask you a question here, and whether you guys had the same experience I did, because they're informed that their mother died by their father, Russell Crowe,
Nikolai Kravenov.
In his late
Russell
period,
Crowe playing Nikolai Kravenov, not Russell Crowe as himself.
His late career extravagant accent period that he's that we all love.
Yes.
Elevates every scene he's in.
Everything he does.
No question.
Yeah.
Gun to my head, I would be like, he's the best thing in this movie.
He is self-evidently like a supervillain. So him just like appearing and telling that his wife is dead, like, were you set up for like some kind of reveal, either that he is like lying about that and she's still alive and he's just doing this to like cart the kids away, or like that there was something really insidious going on with the mom, rather than like, it seems like maybe she was killed by him, but also maybe it's just true that that's what happened. I don't know.
I think maybe I was just so happy to see Russell Crowe show up that I'm like, anything. I'm just taking.
I just feel like I had these expectations.
Anything you say, beautiful.
To be honest,
some payoff for that.
I think it was just supposed to be a tragic backstory. I think that I had a different feeling where later on I thought it was going to be. I thought that Russell Crowe would be involved in a bigger twist than he was. There's a minimal twist, but I thought he was going to be involved in a much bigger twist.
They squander
kind of
Russell Crowe.
Yeah,
he does. He is evil right off the bat. Everything about it is evil. I thought you were going to say
kind of charming.
Did you have the same experience I had where I could not quite figure out how Russian or how American these characters were supposed to be, because their accents were a little malleable at times, and for much of it, Aaron Taylor Johnson is doing the same kind of like mumbly, cool guy, vaguely New York-y, vaguely Marlon Brando-y voice that like a lot of guys, especially after watching this right after Venom: The Last Dance, where with each movie, Tom Hardy's voice has gotten more cartoonish as Eddie Brock. I was like, oh, okay, he's doing a similar kind of voice.
Having watched this movie very close to Venom 3, it's not good for Aaron Taylor Johnson because Tom Hardy is so much more fun in that movie.
I feel like Tom Hardy has nothing to prove anymore in the Venom movies. So he's just like, whatever. I'm a slob. I'm walking around. I'm mumbling. I'm crazy. Whereas Aaron Taylor Johnson has to get across that he's cool in this, which is hard to do when you're Kraven, an uncool character.
An uncool character. So yes, so these two boys are the sons of a Russian oligarch gangster who lives
drug dealer,
who lives in a mansion in London, outside of London. Their dad picks them up, and he's like, you know what, your mom's dead. It's time for you guys to reconnect with nature. Let's go on a hunting trip to Ghana. So they go to Ghana because there has been reports of a legendary lion named Czar.
And they go, this lion has killed 2,000 to 3,000 men over the years. And it's like, no way. That's impossible.
I'm like,
way.
The way they said it, I thought it was like, it sounded like the subtitles were wrong. I'm like, it can't be 1,000.
That's not. There's no way that's possible.
This lion is the most prolific serial killer known to man.
Yeah, he's the real suspect zero.
Unless this lion is rounding people up into concentration camps, there is no way he's killing that many people.
Both the ghost and the darkness.
Oh, wow.
He's a man killer. How many has he killed? 3,000.
What?
Okay, so this
hunting out of this country.
This hunting trip, like the other lions are like, damn. Like I feel like young lions are like, I have to live up to this guy.
No, they're like,
the pressure's enormous. This is unrealistic expectations.
You're getting all us other lions a bad name.
Yes.
I'm cool, man.
Yeah, teach me, dude. Okay, so
so this lion went through a small town and just murdered everybody in it.
Yeah.
Really? And no one tried to stop him at any point? No, couldn't do it. Too good a lion.
Yeah, he's just too
jumping
good to be
around
a lion.
and stuff.
Lions are known for their jumping, just like Kraven. So this hunting trip, it's there's a bunch of other guys along. There's also a guide. There's a native guide who like adds a little bit of flavor to the specifics of their hunt. And there's also a young gangster who seems to be struggling with some kind of like asthma stuff, who we will later know is known as the Rhino.
Yeah,
but also
this is Alessandro Nivola, who I thought was pretty fun in this movie.
He was the most fun.
It was pretty fun. Yeah,
Russell Crowe though dismisses him so heartily that I'm like, no, man, you're creating an Iron Man 3 villain right now.
Yeah. Well,
it's a classic situation.
Or an Oppenheimer villain. Like, all these guys in movies are so have such poor self-esteem that one negative comment turns them into turns them villains.
It must crush them.
Yeah.
Which I would think
they got to become the Joker.
And I would think that was crazy, except that our president and the shadow president behind him are basically the same guy.
Yes.
Like one insult so wrecked them that they were like, well, now I have to hurt everybody. This is terrible.
Okay, so as we said, Rhino makes overtures to join with Nikolai Kravinoff, but he is rebuffed and humiliated verbally.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
but quietly, I don't think anyone else heard it.
Yeah, I don't. I feel like everyone's listening.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Meanwhile, on
the Lions
nearby, we are introduced to a young girl named Calypso who's visiting her grandmother. Her grandmother is some kind of magic. And she introduces
everyone's
her,
grandmother is some kind of magic, Stuart, to be honest.
She introduces her to the magic of tarot cards, and then some kind of old family secret potion, unspecified. Just a magic potion that will maybe help somebody, bring them back to life. I don't know.
Give them animal powers,
They read the tarot cards, and it basically explains what's going to happen over the course of the rest of the movie. There's a lion attack. Sergei and Dmitri find Tsar, and Sergei almost seems to be cowing Tsar with his natural riz, and then his dad blasts the lion with a shotgun, and the lion attacks Sergei and drags him off, bleeding into the underbrush. Calypso sneaks away from her parents who are on safari, and she finds the lion and Sergei. The lion is bleeding into Sergei's wounds.
Oh, that's how it happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the lion leaves, and then she gives him a taste of this magic potion and puts the tarot card for strength, which features a fucking lion in his hand.
Shit.
Now, things look bad for Sergei. Yeah. Things look bad for Sergei. They take him to a nearby hospital. He's pronounced dead, but then he almost immediately revives.
But I think they say he was dead for 3 minutes, like the 3 days that your Lord was dead before reviving. Not mine, but your guys'.
Lord?
Yeah. Well,
My-
Dan's maybe. Dan's family's lord.
My
Did
Lord
you-
Crom of the mountains.
That's right, I forgot. Crom gives you only the strength to survive, and that's all. So, do you guys think this was on purpose that they're making Kraven into kind of a Christ parable and they're parallel? And they're saying
he
that Christ
kinda
should
looks
track
like him. He's
down
got, like,
Russian
a little-
oligarchs.
He's got like a little beard and cool hair. Right?
And you know
I
that
guess
Christ
he
was
is-
ripped too, because he didn't get a lot of food. He was also pretty skinny, but like you knew there were muscles coming through, right?
I've been to some churches in Bay Ridge, and he is looking fucking tight.
I mean, the one difference is
How much you
that
think he benches? How much you think Christ benches?
Oh
What?
man, at least 315.
the one difference is
So
that
when people say, "Could God make a rock so heavy even God couldn't lift it?" He probably can't. You know?
Yes.
just a little
he's so strong.
theological teachings here. Like the one difference is once Christ was risen, he didn't make a list of people he then had to kill and
Didn't
went
he,
around
Dan?
eliminating.
Didn't he? Where's Pontius Pilate today? Answer me that.
Yeah,
Not
that's
walking
true.
around.
Mhm.
Got
He got a blow dart to the neck. Okay, so let's see. His dad takes him back home to London, where they have a confrontation, and Sergei gets mad, and we see his father has given him the gift of Tsar the Lion's head,
Mm-hmm.
which is stuffed and mounted. He doesn't want it. He doesn't want to be part of this family. So in the middle of the night, he runs off, leaving his brother Dmitri, who's a little bit weaker but has a knack for doing impressions, leaves him
Let's
to the
talk
mercies of
about
his
this.
dad and runs off.
Let's talk about this for a moment. Dimitri is very much the Fredo brother. You know, he's the weaker one. He's the half brother who's the product of an affair. That father doesn't respect him. He can imitate anyone's
Which is
voice.
also like that is like the laziest, shittiest fucking writing to
Yes.
make the half brother just like weaker.
Yes,
Like
just
I hate
physically
that
weaker.
kind of like eugenics weird garbage.
But here's the thing: he can imitate anyone's voice perfectly because they're just playing the audio from someone else's voice where he lip syncs it. But they go, "You always were a chameleon." Now, guys, are chameleons known for their mimicry of voices and sounds? Parrots are, but I don't really think of chameleons as being voice mimics. You know,
What do you think, Dan? Do you have any experiences
I mean,
with
I
chameleons?
understand it as a metaphor, as like you can blend in.
It only exists because that character
No, it
eventually
doesn't have to
becomes he eventually becomes the Spider-Man villain, the chameleon. But the idea that he can do anyone's voice and they're like, "What a chameleon!" Like that's
guess-
not the word you would use.
I guess, yeah, no, he wouldn't really like. It doesn't indicate that you're fitting in, and people think that you're a person just because you do the voice. It's
Guys,
like,
yeah.
oh, good impression, dude.
To pull
Like,
the curtain back a little bit, years ago, I was potentially being set up with a young woman to go on a date, and
take a
so
fall?
I
Wow.
looked at her. I looked at her MySpace page to prepare. I don't know, to look at her bio.
Yeah, cyberstalk. Yeah,
Yeah, of course. Cyberstalking hadn't been invented yet. This is 20
only
years ago. or
only
something.
silk stockings had been invented. Yeah, that's true.
So, but under her bio, she was describing herself, and one of the things it was like a questionnaire, and one of the questions was like, "What kind of animal would you say you are?" And she said, "I would say I'm a cami lion," and it took me like 10 minutes to realize she was trying to say chameleon. We did not go on a date. I just like couldn't. Yeah,
You
That
thought
was-
she meant a lion that was dressed like Cammy from Street Fighter?
which I'd be like, "Yes, sign me up."
Which I meant. So this character Dimitri is. Spoiler alert: he will become by the end of the movie the Chameleon, a different Spider-Man villain. These are
Spider-Man
two characters that were always kind of linked in the comic books, but it wasn't many years after they were introduced that it was revealed that they were actually half brothers. So this is from the comics that they're half brothers.
It continues the theme of animal characters in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got an animal inside them, as the Rhino later explains.
Everyone has two animals inside of them: a rhino, a chameleon, and a lion. I guess that's three.
Yep, those are the three animals. So
Yeah.
Sergei runs off. He boards a steamship to Russia, and he runs off to live on the land that his mother owned, I guess, in like eastern Russia, which is basically like untouched wilderness filled with one giant herd of wildebeests and a couple of like snow leopards.
I think
and,
they're like
forest.
they're like oxen or something like that, or mustangs. I don't know if they're wildebeests, but
Okay. Well, I mean, hey, listeners, write in if you know what they are.
right
to
into
Kraven.
Dan McCoy, real street address to come,
Right,
Brooklyn, New
right
York.
to KT Hunter.
Yeah, that's a special Max Fun stretch goal. As Dan shares you his actual address.
How about just some feet pictures?
Oh. Oh man. Okay, so
more privacy in it.
so young Kraven goes off to the woods. There's like a little training montage where he learns about his superhuman abilities that he has gained from lion blood and magic potion, and then he goes and starts killing poachers. What?
Now, he does a leap in this, and it really showed to me a kind of. There's a lot of leaps in this movie where it's very clearly wire work, where they've erased the wires. That's okay. I don't expect them to literally launch someone into the air, or for him to have to climb up a tree,
or for him to learn how to jump that high,
or for him to learn how to jump across a crevasse. But when he jumps, and this is something they do in a lot of these movies, you don't see like his legs bend and then push off. Instead, he just kind of lifts into the air while his legs are still pinwheeling as if he's running, and it looks very silly. And I realized, they do this a lot in movies, and it looks particularly silly here. This is not how a jump works, It's not like you're just running in the air, I mean,
I wonder if that's part of the way that the, stunt effects work, or the way that I don't know. But you're right. I mean, it does look
possible.
silly.
It's possible. It looks silly, but maybe that's the safest way to do it, in which case do it that way. Do it the silly way if it's safe.
Yeah,
but it looks more like he's being jerked into the air by a wire than it is that he's jumping under his own power,
that he has made some kind of contract with Aeolus, the Lord of the Winds, and those winds lift him off the ground.
Exactly.
Okay, so years later, he is still doing the same shit. He's living in the woods, killing poachers, and he's looking at that tarot card with a lion on it. Go on, Dan.
Now, the words "years later" roused me from my slumber to make a point that I wanted to.
Because Dan sleeps in Relea at his house, dreaming for the moment that someone says "years later." Yeah.
Now, this whole opening sequence. This long flashback.
Do we need it? The answer is no, Daniel.
Absolutely not. No.
Well, yeah, we don't need it, and arguably, I don't know how you guys feel about this.
I love it.
Arguably, I feel like if you're going to have it, which I would not recommend keeping it, if you're going to have it, arguably for me, I'm so sick of the cold open in a lot of movies where we have to show you what it's going to be like eventually, because in a way, when things slow down from it, I'm like, why can't we just go back to that exciting thing I just saw? Why are we suddenly hitting the brakes? I almost, if you're going to have it, would prefer a shorter version that just starts with him as kids and we just do it that way. Or the best option, again, cutting it. And if we need any of this information, it can be smaller flashbacks scattered in the movie.
Well, Dan, you texted something to us while you were watching it, which was that you said the biggest mistake the movie made was that it acted like it's supposed to be a serious movie that wants us to take it seriously. And I think that's they're telling this like it's a serious story about fathers and sons and
sons being Jewish,
being a rhino.
Being a rhino, exactly. And it shouldn't be. It's a story about a superpowered poacher, a superpowered hunter who fights poachers and wears a lion's head vest. And so it should be kind of silly. And the movie is at its most fun kind of the sillier it gets. But you're right. They spend a lot of time trying to build up his character so you're going to care about Kraven the Hunter. And it's it should not be working at that level. It should be working on a much more surface fun level, probably.
Yeah, by the end, at the moment, there's a part where a literal rhino man is fighting him in a stampede. I'm like, yes. Finally, something that feels like it should be in this movie.
I was waiting for this. Yeah.
Although I have some issues with that one. We'll talk about that scene when we get to it.
Okay, so Kraven, now all grown up and looking hot, heads back to London, where he tracks down Calypso, and they reunite.
Played by the second Academy Award winner in the movie, Ariana DeBose. So there's 2 Academy Award winners in this movie, which is also silly.
I don't like being hard on actors. I've liked her in other things. I find her performance here very strange.
My guess is that this was not a role. I mean, her role barely exists in this movie. They don't give her much to do. And who knows, maybe there was such a focus on the action stuff in the filmmaking that she wasn't getting the support she deserves. I don't know. This movie is directed by J.C. Chandor, who also did Margin Call, which I think is a great movie, and All Is Lost, which is an interesting movie too. And it's just it's a very weird. It's a weird choice. It's a weird choice to have him doing this because it feels like the movie is fighting between who's in control, him or the idea of a superpowered hunter. And it gets so I think Ariana DeBose's character kind of gets lost in the whole thing. I mean, in Wikipedia it describes her as a voodoo priestess who aids Kraven. No, she's not. She's a lawyer who works at a high class London law firm and helps him track down people. She at one point she uses a bow and arrow, but like it would be more fun if she was a voodoo priestess.
She dabbled in having a potion once when she was a kid.
You have one potion, suddenly you're a voodoo priestess.
Don't worry, we'll see that voodoo potion again. So he has another reason for going back to London. And that's because it's his brother Dimitri's birthday. So he parkours up the side of his brother's apartment building, and
so
they
swam
reunite
there like a fish, using his fish powers.
They reunite. They go out in the town. Now his brother at this point, grown up, is played by Fred Hetchinger. I don't know. He's had a great run. He was in White Lotus. He was the dopey grandson in Thelma. He was one of the two twin emperors in Gladiator 2. Yeah, he's just killing it right now. And in this one, he gets to borrow people's voices for a little while as the chameleon.
Well, and he basically, does he own or run this nightclub, or he just performs there? He performs at a nightclub where he sings in the style of other singers.
Yes, I think he owns it. Yeah, I would imagine that it's like his nightclub that his dad hangs out at. Because that's what you want when you run your own nightclub, is your dad there all the time.
And for you to be the only performer who has to do multiple shows a night, I guess. But I guess maybe that's the fun of it. He was there for the performing. He's not that interested in whether the nightclub operates perfectly well.
Around now, Rhino starts to make some moves. He's taking advantage of the of the gangster that Kraven killed back in the prison, and he starts consolidating power. And then he makes a play to try and take out Nikolai Kravinoff at that nightclub. Doesn't work. Nikolai Kravinoff is a tough old bear. Not literally, but
as you worried, I missed a big plot point.
You'd be mistaken if you could understand it. I mean, he does have a run-in with a big old bear later. So maybe he was a big old bear. It'd be better for him, yeah.
He's making a play. He's making moves, and then after Dimitri and Sergei celebrate his birthday, Sergei has to go sleep out in a park because he just can't handle being cooped up inside an apartment building.
Guys, I gotta admit, I spaced out for a minute when bears were being mentioned to think about the country bears. And
sure, okay. Is Kraven killing them?
Well, you said that there was a bear, and I thought a country bear, but I didn't say it. But then I got onto the thought of country bears, and I was like, man, if country bears had been a hit, 100% the sequel would be called City Bears, right? And it would be fish out of water bear stuff.
Oh my God, that's...
Like, we got to revive the franchise just so we can do that.
Dan, slap a TM on that bad boy so we don't, so we can take advantage of this.
I mean, there's so many more you could do.
On Disney property.
City bears, jungle bears, underwater bears. You could do all sorts of. You send them anywhere, and it's good. Mountain bears, space bears.
Sure, bears in space, but the saying, it's perfect. It's perfect for the anyway.
Yeah, sure.
And it's fun that you bring up Country Bears, because that's a movie that we talked about during the Max Fun Drive. We did a commentary during.
Oh, that's true. We did do that
for the Max Fun Drive a little bit ago. Elliot, you were saying something about the Max Fun Drive at the start of the episode.
I was. This is a great time to take a break from all this action, all this Russian gangster animal action, to talk about the Max Fun Drive. What's the Max Fun Drive? I'm so glad you asked. It's the one time of year when we come to you, hat in hand, and invite you to support our show by becoming a Max Fun member or boosting or upgrading your membership. Membership support is key to keeping our show alive. It's the single greatest source of funding we have, and it allows us to keep putting out episodes week after week after week. Not only that, because we have your support backing us up, we don't have to go after alternative funding methods that might force us to compromise the show, either creatively or morally. Yeah, fracking, exactly. Your support means that we can say no to sponsors with businesses we aren't cool with. For instance, without your support, this show will be brought to you by companies like National Napalm, Consolidated Kid Poison, and the American Heroin Corporation. Thanks to your membership, we don't have to do that. We can stay anti-heroin and anti-poisoning kids. Yeah. Your support keeps our show independent, which allows us to put out the show we love making and that you love listening to, we hope. So will you please join us as a Max Fun member? Please, you can do that by either joining as a new member, or if you're already a member, upgrading or boosting your existing membership. If you join at the $5 per month level, that's the cost of one comic book nowadays, you get access to an entire library of bonus content for all Max Fun shows, such as the aforementioned Country Bears audio commentary that we recorded. That is dozens of hours at least of Flophouse content alone, and that's just part of hundreds of hours of exclusive entertainment across the Max Fun universe, the MFMCU, the Max Fun more content universe.
Oh, great. You got it. So you landed that plane.
Yeah, we did it. Phew. And I may talk more about our specific bonus content later in the show. But I just wanted to keep saying that if you are already a member, you can upgrade your membership and you get physical thank you gifts, not just bonus content, which is more stuff for your ears, but physical stuff. At the $10 a month level, this year we're doing enamel pins again. I always love it when we do pins. I love our pin this year. It's got Mads Mikkelsen on it, and it says "Mad About Mads," just one of our longtime mottos. And there are even more gifts at higher levels. If you can't afford to upgrade your membership right now, but you still want to kick us a little extra, like a little podcasting tip that you just throw in the cup at the end, that'd be super cool too. You can boost your monthly payment by a few extra dollars or whatever you feel our show is worth. So go right now. Don't put it off. You're going to forget it if you put it off. Go right now to MaximumFun.org/join and please become a member or upgrade or boost your membership today. We'd really appreciate it. I'll be back later in the show to talk more about Max Fun stuff. But for now, let's get back to the story of the Kraven brothers, the brothers Kravenov,
and
the brothers Karas-Gravenov.
You'll get
and
there.
we're at the chapter titled "Rhino Makes a Move." So as I said,
On the DVD?
Rhino makes
Rhino
a
busts
move.
a move, yeah.
He consolidates power. He tries to kill Nikolai Kravinoff, and he also enlists the aid of a superhuman assassin called the Foreigner, played by Christopher Abbott, which I was very excited by. I was hoping this meant he was going to be abused by a woman in a hotel room over and over, since that seems to be his specialty these days.
Oh, see, I know him best still as Marnie's ex-boyfriend from Girls. So
wait,
it's very
I have
funny to
some
see him
movies
as
I could introduce you to.
I know
Yeah, I guess so.
I know one of the movies you're talking about. What's the other one? Or ones?
What was the one that was based on like a Murakami book? Where
that's
I don't know.
that
You're
one
talking-
was fun.
He was in that one that was like, is this like role playing or not? Right?
Yeah,
that
with
one?
Margaret Qualley,
Yeah. What was that called?
Sanctuary.
Okay.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that, but like I saw him in
that one
Possessor,
more than I did, but
and I saw him in like
he's great in Possessor.
and he's
That's
in
that's a fun one.
it's a real
it's just
fun.
fun. You know, let's go fast and fun.
He's just a good weird. Like if you need a weird dude, and I think he brings the goods in this movie. He's a weird dude in this movie.
He is a weird dude in this one. He is a weird and so the Foreigner in the comics is just another one of these guys who's just like he's the greatest assassin of all. He's the greatest martial arts expert.
Oh yeah,
But
he's
here-
great in Poor Things as the like weird husband at the end.
Oh, I forgot that was him. That's right. But the Foreigner in this movie has some sort of strange superpower where he kind of starts counting and
Piercing is the movie where he also gets beat up.
I couldn't
Close that
figure out,
circle.
and maybe you guys could figure it out. Is his power that he can then move faster than time, or is it that he puts someone in a trance
I think
and they don't
it's-
notice him moving?
I think it's the trance thing, because otherwise, like, what's the 1, 2, 3? Like, they seem to be like getting like queasy or whatever. So I think that we're kind of seeing it from their perspective, and it seems like he can move fast because they black out, kind of. But
Elliot, doesn't he have this superpower in the comic books, the Foreigner?
He does not. No, this is one of several characters in the movie who are, or in the Marvel movies in general, who are very loosely based on the characters whose names they supposedly
also,
share.
I thought the Foreigner was Jackie Chan, right?
Yeah, I
And
think
then
you're right.
He was bedeviling Pierce Brosnan. And,
No, the Foreigner wants to know what love is, and he wants you to show him.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. I got in trouble last time I showed it.
It's not like that.
No.
Okay, so, and also Rhino makes the play. He has his guys go and break into Dimitri's flat, and they capture Dimitri. They were hoping to capture Sergei, we later learned, but Sergei was sleeping in the park.
Sleeping in the park, yeah.
So we get a little action sequence where Kraven is chasing after his brother and these goons in a van.
I like this sequence.
yeah.
I gotta say, you gotta find the wheat and the chaff or whatever. And I thought the sequence was kind of genuinely exciting, and maybe it's because it's the first time in the movie that I feel actual like urgent stakes for anything.
Yes.
Because before that, I hate illegal poachers, so it's kind of fun getting them all like murdered by Kraven. But it doesn't have the same sort of like personal investment or like reason like Kraven might be worried about something.
And this is the first time that we see an action sequence where Kraven does not handily just destroy everybody with no challenge. Where he
don't worry, Elliot. There's going to be more of those later.
That's true. Yeah. Oh, thank goodness. But this is one where Kraven is on the back foot and he is at a disadvantage, even if he can absorb unlimited hit points of damage. And at times it seems like the car that he's chasing stops for a couple seconds so that he can catch up to it.
Yeah.
But overall, he has a disadvantage here, and it's a fun chase for sure.
Yeah. He's got super armor every time he jumps. Okay. So they managed to get away after dragging him through the river with a helicopter.
Yeah, he made the odd choice in my mind to like use that netting to try and pull the helicopter back rather than climb up to the helicopter.
I also wondered why he didn't. I also wondered why he didn't climb up the helicopter.
He was in the moment. He was all caught up.
Do all helicopters? It seems like they only do two things, which is they fly up in the air and they all have a beeping thing that goes off when the bad guys are being chased by a good guy. As soon as that net hits the helicopter, immediately there's that like beep 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 beep.
We got a net alert here.
The old helicopter alarm is flashing. Thank God, Thomas T. Helicopter.
Or else we wouldn't know that Kraven was chasing us. Yeah,
crazy coincidence. The name.
So it's like Outerbridge, the bridge that's named after a guy who's named Outerbridge.
That blew my fucking mind when I first learned that.
I mean, that guy for years was like, I got to do something with this name. So he had to build this fucking bridge.
I've got to. The Outerbridge baby food company is not making the most sense. I've got to drop that and do something else. Yeah.
Cool. So they get away. But Kraven has...
Dan, now for some reason I'm thinking about the story of Jezediah Whoopi, inventor of the whoopee cushion.
And the whoopee pie.
And everyone else with that name is like, our name used to mean good cheer, whoopee. You ruined it with your invention.
All the family reunions were big battles from that point on, yeah.
So they managed to get away, but Kraven got
Mr. Whoopi. When was the last time you talked to your son? I have no son.
The bad guys get away, but Kraven manages to get a good look at the leader and the type of cigarettes he smokes.
Not the leader, the Marvel character who is in Captain America: Brave New World.
Nope. I didn't
know that.
Of
the yeah. Although they don't call him the leader.
Is it Tim Blake Nelson?
It's him again.
Tim Blake Nelson.
They really
brought him back.
I mean, it's nice to see him back. They really wasted him.
Like the first time he showed up. Okay, so Calypso, he uses the aid of Calypso to track down these mercs, these mercenaries. Turns out that they are operating out of a Turkish monastery castle or something in Turkey.
She's like, I tracked him down to his family-owned Turkish monastery castle, and I'm like, all right, whatever, sure, whatever reason you're going to set a set piece at this place.
But it turns out this whole thing was a trap. That the Rhino and the Foreigner are trying to trap Kraven. Yep. Which is kind of weird.
We should mention they make a point out of how his name is Sergei Kravenov, but he started calling himself Kraven, and at multiple times characters are like, Kraven? I guess that's what he's calling himself now, and it's very silly to me that they bothered to call attention to that. And
it's also funny that at one point somebody calls him Kraven, and he's like, how'd you know that name? I'm like, well, you are Kravenoff. Like, I don't know.
It's not that difficult. And he's, did we ever talk about how he is a mythical figure among these characters that they call the Hunter, who hunts down bad guys? And they literally have the dumb line that's in every single one of these goddamn movies where they go, the Hunter, that's a fable. It's a myth. It's a story to scare criminals. And can we just ban that line of dialogue? When someone says, the such and such, it's a fable. It's not real. It's a myth. I hate it. I've heard it so many times in movies now. It's so lazy.
It has lost whatever power it once had to make to like help juice up a character so that you think they're cool before they do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so it turns out this whole thing's a trap, but it doesn't matter.
It's actually a concert that he's taking his daughter to, so they can capture him there. Yeah, it's a trap.
Fucking only, dude.
Luckily, he locates a friendly concessions man who.
Man, God, stop making me think of that movie. So he heads to this monastery. He does some hunting and kills a whole bunch of mercenaries. There's a couple of fun bits where he's like sneaking around, like crawling around on all fours. I like those bits.
They're both fun and also silly that he is just behind some guys crawling around on all floors, and they just don't notice him because he's behind them. You know,
he gets to
it's like the scene in the movie 3 Iron where the guy learns the secret of how to always be in somebody's blind spot. So he is stalking behind people, just kind of like always turning his body slightly, so he's always in their blind spot.
It would have been really funny if there was one shot of a guy kind of sitting in another room as they went by and like see this guy like shadow him and be like, "What the fuck?" And he could say, "What the fuck?" because this is an R-rated movie.
This is an R-rated movie.
Just go,
and
yeah, be like, I don't know. I guess it's their thing.
It's as if the movie realizes as it's going that it's an R-rated movie because characters start to swear more and more as the movie goes on.
Yep. So he cuts his way through all these mercenaries. He captures the leader just in time for them to blow up the monastery with a missile launcher. He gets just enough information from this guy that the Rhino is the one who set him up and has doomed them to death. Of course, Kraven's fine. He gets hit by a bunch of masonry, but he's okay. Calypso, turns out Calypso is being tracked down by the Rhino's guys as well. She has to escape. She's on the run. So Kraven uses his pilot friend, just burning through fuel nonstop. I guess he doesn't care about the environment. And he flies.
I guess you got this movie.
Yeah, I got it.
Boom. Take that, Kraven.
He flies Calypso to his land in Russia, where he now has an airstrip because I guess he's in and out all the time.
And he lives in like a geodesic dome.
Yeah, like a cool little greenhouse.
Yeah, and his kitchen has flip down panels full of hunting knives and swords,
which
and things
is
like
insane because it's like, are you having guests a lot, dude? If people are here, they'd probably
there's no need to
there's no need to hide it. Like, just leave it out.
I think it's all tiny home type stuff. It's just about using the space the best.
I guess you're right. Yeah,
this table is also a bed. Like this bed is also a chair. The sink is also a toilet. It's a tiny home. You know, everything has a double use. You know.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. The
toilet is also a shower. If you stand underneath me and I pee on you, and Calypso's like, I don't think that's how it works. It's okay. I have the world's greatest environmental diet, so my pee is super pure and clean. I drink so much water because, again, I'm always working out that my pee is just pure water at this point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like with all the protein powders he has to be eating, it's got to be messing with his stream.
That's probably true. Okay. Yeah.
So they have a little bit of time where they're just like hanging out in the woods, and he's like showing her stuff, and they're connecting, but it doesn't really reach like actual romantic interest. Meanwhile, the Rhino and the Foreigner manage to, they intimidate Dmitri. They chop off one of his fingers. We found out that they tried to get money out of his dad, and his dad's not interested. He doesn't care. He's like, they're going to kill him anyway. Russell Crowe's accent's way more fun.
Yeah. I want to suck your blood.
Oh, blah, blah. But they, using the Foreigner, finds some trace poison from one of Kraven's blow darts, and he tracks down where that flower is from. This pea is only a very small forest in Russia, so they're like, we got him. So they fly over there with Dmitri, and they're going to track down Kraven.
Like Sherlock Holmes, he wrote a monograph on that particular plant, so he happened to know that.
So they bring a bunch of mercenaries and they go to track down Kraven. Kraven gets all his gear on, and we get a little bit of a fight. Kraven murderizes a whole bunch of mercenaries with a bunch of Ewok-style traps.
They all step in exactly the right places that they need to step to set off the traps.
He's a
very
super
funny.
hunter.
He's a super hunter.
Yeah, he knows exactly where someone's going to set their boot.
Prey.
Eventually, he runs afoul of the Foreigner, who attacks him with his nightmare gun, which has some kind of poison that gives you nightmares before killing you. Of course, his nightmares are all spiders. You know,
sorry, I'm just taking by the
spiders.
Wow.
Wide spiders.
Why would it be spiders?
Spider-Man, baby.
Because there's no Spider-Man in this universe where the movie takes place. But
sorry, I was just taken by the phrase "nightmare gun" and was like thinking, it's like, is that a better like direct-to-video movie, or is it like a pulp paperback maybe Nightmare Gun?
Why does it have to be one or the other? It could be all of them.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense if you know Kraven's a Spider-Man character. It makes sense he has this spider dream. I mean, it harkens back to Kraven's Last Hunt, where there's a sequence where he's just eating handfuls of spiders. They're crawling all over, and he's just picking them up and eating them. But
so he can become the Spider-Man, right?
Yes. So he can become the spider, exactly. Because then he puts on Spider-Man's costume and he says, "I'm going to be better than you, and I'm going to do the things you couldn't do." But it is very silly to me that this guy who's like the ultimate hunter and has kinship with all the animals is afraid of spiders. Something that is just a normal thing everybody encounters pretty much in daily life.
It would have been so funnier if his nightmare was that like the forest was replaced with like a city and he was wearing a suit and he had to carry a briefcase.
I have a counterpoint. I have a
Three-piece
counterpoint,
cage,
Elliot.
you know? Yeah.
But spiders are really weird looking.
That's true.
Spiders
They're
are
super
weird
freaky.
looking. Again, it's more the point. It's less that
They're
spiders
super
are not
freaks.
inherently strange or scary, but rather that Kraven has been built up to us as a man of of nature, a man of the wild. And so the idea that a little spider would scare him seems like a strange Achilles heel for a guy who I guarantee you has woken up with bugs and spiders crawling all over him many times in his life.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure he used them as a source of protein. So we
He
get
has
a little
to,
bit of a fight.
He's micro-proteining all day. Yeah.
We get a little fight between the foreigner and a drugged up Kraven. It's mainly Christopher Abbott doing some cool kicks and knee moves. It's pretty cool. I like it. And it looks
knee moves.
It looks
He
like
really takes his time. Instead of just shooting Kraven in the head, he takes his time kind of stunting the whole time.
Yeah, of course. And he even goes so far, he's got Kraven where he wants him, and he dismisses the other mercenaries. He's like, "Oh, this is done. You can leave." So they leave and tell their boss, like, "Yeah, I guess Kraven's dead, so we can go." But before he can do the
inexplicable, I'm sorry. I know you watch Reacher.
I watch Reacher all
Are
the
you
time.
up to date on Reacher?
Heck yeah, I am.
There's an episode, and I don't want to spoil anything too much for people, so jump ahead if you're worried at all. But there's an episode where Reacher's like, "I'm going to let you go do this thing alone." And I'm like, "No, Reacher, why would you do that? You're the big burly one.
Yeah.
You got to be there. This is not going to end well." Anyway, sorry.
So,
So the foreigner then alone with Kraven kills him, right?
He's about to do his coup de grace, and he starts doing his count off. But of course, he is interrupted. Calypso shoots an arrow through his eye socket, killing him instantly. She gives us a little tagline, like 3 bitch or something.
He counts 1, 2, and then she just goes 3 motherfucker, and it's it's like what a cool move. And also like, so did she hear him mumbling the numbers to himself from far away?
Yeah,
I
don't know how
rehearsed this earlier,
works.
actually.
I see.
She comes over. Kraven's dead from all the toxins. She gives him a little nip of the old super juice.
A little swig of that little hair of the dog that brought you back to life.
Yep, puts him back in the game. He gets a 1-up. And
I wish Scott Pilgrim style, a 1-up and then just go ding and floated up to the top of the screen.
There's a little life bar.
The one piece of whimsy in the whole movie.
So the Rhino manages, and we find out the reason he's called the Rhino, and we're going to learn more in a second, is that both out of his attitude that like a rhino, if he sees an opportunity, he charges forward without thinking.
Yeah.
But more importantly, in his quest to overcome his physical frailty, he underwent experimental treatments from a doctor in New York.
Dr. New York, he drops the name Dr. Miles Warren, who is another Spider-Man villain, the Jackal, who is better known as the creator of the Spider Clone. And he's the guy who's behind every cloning thing in Spider-Man. He's a real crappy villain. Like he's the kind of villain who is not that interesting to look at, not that fun to see stories with, and he has caused way more trouble than it's worth. But anyway, he says Dr. Miles Warren, he's the one who gave me this treatment to make me stronger. And what kind of treatment is it, Stuart?
The treatment, it seems to have been some kind of a failed treatment, because what it does is it makes him very strong and indestructible. His skin turns hard like a rhino's. It makes him indestructible like a rhino. And I'm like, I'm sad to report, rhinos are not indestructible.
No, they are endangered, actually, because they're so easy to kill. Yeah.
But if he is not connected to some kind of a medicine, his body rapidly crusts over into this like armored form, basically, right?
Yeah.
He looks kind of like the Thing or like the Rhino, basically.
But also just
he looks like the character of the Rhino.
Yeah.
I kind of love how like low tech it feels, because it feels like he's just got like a gas can, like one of those plastic rubber gas cans, like hooked up to his back.
Yeah, he's got like
tube.
a camelback backpack that just goes into a port in his side and just fills him full of no rhino juice.
What's this liquid? Oh, this is what keeps me from being a rhino.
And I mean, It is a thing where he kind of dresses like a little kid going to school wearing a little backpack. So I could see why other gangsters might not take him seriously. But
yeah.
So The Rhino and his remaining goons scoop up Dimitri. They're like, I guess we'll try and ransom him anyway. And they start driving off. They're like, job's done. Kraven's dead. Hooray. Of course, now Kraven shows up with a stampede of, what do you say, oxen? I called them wildebeest. Some kind of large
there's some kind of large
animal. Yep.
Quadruped, cattle-like quadruped.
Are they rontos?
They're probably
yeah, they might be rontos. Yeah, they could be, yeah.
And they smash into the convoy. They smash all the stuff. All the goons get smushed.
They used to have a great big convoy. Now that's a joke for, I guess, people who remember novelty songs from the 70s.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, it feels like our audience.
That's the right podcast.
I guess so.
So Dimitri gets knocked around, but he's okay. Rhino's like, it's Rhino time. So he unhooks himself and he gets all crusty and he grows a couple of horns on his head. That looks cool.
I want to talk about the Rhino. I want to pause for a moment to talk about the Rhino design. So the Rhino is a fully CGI character at this point. There's no, you're not seeing a real actor. It's probably a mocap thing. But they decided for some reason, well, it also means that this character who has been a very talkative character up to this point, when he's the Rhino, he just bellows and screams and roars. He doesn't have any lines of dialogue. But the Rhino in the comics is a pretty a pretty big round guy. Like he has a body like a rhino. Like he's like a walking tank.
He's huge, yeah.
Whereas this Rhino has a very tiny waist and is super cut, just like Kraven. And I thought this looked hilarious to me, that this Rhino has like a wasp waist.
No, you're
and
right.
these huge shoulders and huge pecs.
It
and then
kind of looks
regular
like
sized
gay
legs.
at all for this guy, yeah.
Vin Diesel had a rhino head.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Rhinos notoriously don't work out their lower body.
I don't know.
And it's kind of cool that like his shirt rips off, but his pants stay pristine.
Yeah, he has those stretch pants that can move with rhino muscles.
No, he goes
but his waist
he has scrunch butt yoga pants.
His waist was just so narrow that I kept thinking that Kraven was just going to snap him in half. Like it seemed like a real weak point.
But
he kind of
I was trying to think of like where you buy the Hulk pants. Like I was H&M Hulk and Monsters. Is that where you get the stretchy pants?
Yeah, that's the fast casual place for pants that you wear when you're
surprisingly more expensive than you would think. So they fight. There's a couple of like jokes here and there about how heavy Rhino is. Eventually, and it seems like Rhino is getting the best of Kraven. He's like punching him and throwing cars at him and stuff. It is kind of weird though, because I feel like because becoming the Rhino causes him so much pain, he wouldn't actually like train as Rhino very often, right? Like he wouldn't.
I would think not.
Rhino.
So like the trained fighter would probably do better.
I don't know, because the Rhino is so much bigger and stronger that if Kraven didn't have protagonist protection, then you would think that Rhino would very easily just pick him up and tear his head off or something like that.
Especially since he's recovering from a fatal dose of poison.
Well, also,
but he also had a non-fatal dose of magic potion TBD.
That cancels out.
But also, like, until Kraven, like, notices, right, the rhino juice hole. Like, there's literally no weakness on the rhino that he can
he's
take
covered
advantage
in rhino thick skin. Unfortunate for the Rhino, yes, he does have an open medical port on his side, and his shirt ripping off really reveals that.
which is probably helpful that he has that's his route into the Rhino when he stabs a pipe into the port and he starts bleeding everywhere. That's
a cool way for him to stop him.
Well, if he had to do that, then like blast his eyeballs.
He sucks in the
out
end so that he can create a vacuum to, like you're siphoning oil, so the blood will just pour out of him. Yeah.
Well, and then he drinks all the blood, and then his skin becomes Rhino skin, and then we have an equal battle.
Oh no, that would be cool.
So he blasts him, and the Rhino's pretty fucked up at this point. And then he wraps a tow chain around him, and then throws the tow chain into the herd of wildebeests, who then drag him around, and he gets all trampled.
But then his chain disappears. And then he's dragged around and trampled. And then when Kraven goes over to him, the chain is gone. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess
the wildebeest took it.
The wildebeest are like, cool, free chain. Let's untie you so we can use it.
Yeah.
Good quality chain.
Man,
like
we're gonna create a society built around the beautiful
worship
chain.
of the chain.
We worship the chain.
Now
we finally have something to protect our boat.
Yeah. To wrap around our tires when it gets snowy.
Tintin's dog, Snowy?
Yes. When Tintin's dog Snowy shows up, you need to have chains on your tires. Otherwise, you cannot drive over it.
Oh, I understand that. That makes
Don't
sense.
drive over Snowy.
Don't do it. He's such a cute little terrier.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
I'm a drunk sea captain.
And that's
You know I'm going to be driving over a Snowy.
and that's when Tintin goes out for revenge. Like,
Yep.
and it's like John Wick, but it's Tintin. It's called Tinwick.
Oh
Yeah.
man, that's two things mushed together. That's 90% of the T-shirts that are sold to me on
Is that
Facebook.
what the movie 10 Men is?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what Tin Men is about. Yeah, it's about Tintin is grown up, Snowy's dead. He's a salesman now.
Terrible.
Yeah. And then the last one is the 10 Commandments, where he explains his philosophies of life.
Yeah.
It's an older
That's when,
man.
Yeah.
that's when he goes up to the mountain when he comes down there worshiping a golden Snowy and he has to smash it. He goes up and the drunken sea captain is like, I guess we need a different religion now. Let's worship the dog.
Yeah, the sea captain throws his bottle
Yeah,
of booze
where's
out.
your
He's
God
like,
now,
never
Tintin?
again. Yeah. So Kraven approaches a thoroughly stompified, rapidly
thoroughly
dying
modern
rhino
Millie, yeah.
who is missing, and there's no chain anywhere to be found. Huge flaw.
Put in the
So
goose.
Rhino's dying.
Someone
and,
out there.
and this is where the Rhino reveals. He's like, of course, he hints at how he was able to find out Kraven's true identity, which we'll later find out was that his father had leaked the information. This is also where the Rhino says his final words are, "I wish I'd never met you, Kravenoff." So I'm like, yeah, no shit. It went real bad for you, dude.
You're right.
I
That
had
would have
so
been,
much potential. Look at what I accomplished.
your life would have been much better without meeting the Kravenoffs. Yeah, you wouldn't be a
Okay.
rhino man for one thing.
So Rhino's dead. Everybody's happy. Now we
Just
begin.
singing Yub Nub.
Now we begin. There are now
the
multiple.
muskox now celebrate that the end of the rhino tyranny has come, and they topple statues. There's fireworks. Yeah,
And you're like, oh, great, the movie's over. Nope, we have a bunch of epilogues.
This movie
There's
is-
more epilogues in this movie than in fucking Venom 3.
Although
Yeah.
both movies were movies where I'd be like, oh, this has to be the end climax of the movie, and I'd pause it, and there would be 25 minutes left in the movie.
Although
and I was
luckily-
like, what?
Luckily, Stuart, out of the two, you're summarizing the one that doesn't have credit sequences.
What?
We'll get to it.
Okay, so epilogue 1, this is where Kraven tracks down his father, who is on a solo hunting trip somewhere. They talk some shit a little bit.
He's not hunting with the Marvel hitman Solo, who is another character who is not in this movie, but is a Marvel
Or
character.
Solo from the movie Solo.
Would be pretty
Yeah.
cool if Solo and maybe like Silver Sable showed up.
Sure, yeah. Silver Sable, Foreigner's ex-wife in the comics. Yeah.
Yeah, that played by what, Allison? What's her name? Marnie from Girls.
That would be amazing if it's Allison Williams playing Silver Sable and it was a girls' reunion. Yeah, I would love it.
That's what Marvel fans are craving, is a girls' reunion.
This Marvel fan is. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
Okay, so there's so they talk some shit. They're like,
Wait, because what's her name? Mamet, who's also in Girls. She was in Madam
Madam
Web.
Web.
Yeah.
We're just Allison Williams
We're
and Lena
so-
Dunham away from
so
a
close.
from a
And
Sony
Gemma,
Spider-Man
who's
Universe
the
Girls
Australian
reunion.
one.
Oh yeah, Gemma. That's right. Also, yeah.
But put her in. Tap her
She
in.
could be the kangaroo.
Yeah.
Just make that character a woman instead of a man. Yeah.
So they talk some shit. There's the like, we're not so different, yada yada yada, and then Kraven wanders off, and then a giant bear shows up and kills his dad.
And he has taken his dad's bullets, so
He's taken his dad's bullets.
helpless against this bear. Yeah.
We don't actually see him die, so he might show up later as like a bear man. Epilogue number 2.
I mean, there's a
Or
Spider-Man
with two
villain
bears inside
called
him.
there's a Spider-Man villain called Grizzly. He could come back as that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Epilogue 2, this is technically a year later because it's Dimitri's next birthday. They're hanging out at Dimitri's club. They're catching up. Dimitri has a bit of a heel turn. It turns out that he has now taken over his father's empire, and he is now the supervillain, the Chameleon, and he can morph his face and voice.
But also, he basically dresses down Kraven for being like, oh, you're like so high and mighty. You think you're so moral. You're just like dad. And like Kraven's sort of like attitude at the end of the movie kind of suggests that he accepts that this is true. And in a slightly better movie, I kind of thought this was sort of cool at the end.
Yeah.
The brother's like, hey, guess what? if you're just going out and murdering a list of people, maybe you're not the hero.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for the
And
movie
he's
to
like,
acknowledge that.
what happened to Dad? A hunting accident?
I think
Yeah.
that but let's not forget the funny part of this, which is when, to reveal his power, Dmitri walks off and Sergei is like, hey, talk to me. And Dmitri turns around and he has Kraven's head on his much shorter body. And it is hilarious to see this guy looking at a shorter version of himself, and he's got a smirk on his face like, see what I can do?
Oh, that's what I'd look like as a shorter man.
He went to Dr. Exactly. So he went to Dr. Miles Warren and got chameleon face powers. But it is very funny, this visual. Just like to be confronted by a much shorter version of yourself.
Yeah, you're like, is this what I looked like as a kid? No.
No, I didn't have a beard back then.
Okay, and then we have a final epilogue. This is where Kraven returns to his father's house. Everything is packed up in boxes, but there is a gift for him with a note. He opens up that box. You know what that shit is? It is his. It's his cool lion vest. The whole time you're like, why isn't Kraven dressed like Kraven? It's because they had to wait till the very fucking end, like they always do. He puts on this cool vest, takes his shirt off so you can see all those fucking abs. He's got the fucking King's Hawaiian fucking abs there.
It's amazing. It's really like he has extra abs that other human beings don't have. It seems.
And then he sits down in the big ass throne style chair from the classic Kraven pose. And he man spreads, sits in that chair with that cool ass fucking vest, and you're like, hell yeah, that's what I've waited this whole movie to see.
Yeah.
And I'm sure
the
they
hero
didn't they just
sitting down.
But didn't they just put that shit on the poster? Like,
Yes,
come on.
I think that it was one of the posters. So you have to wait the whole movie to get to the image that the poster shows you.
Yeah.
And then that's the end. Were there?
There
don't
weren't.
recall there
were no.
There were no. I think by the time this movie was coming out, I think there was an understanding.
The writing was on the wall.
That this experiment had run its course. This no Spider-Man universe experiment.
And they might have at some point intended at least one of those epilogues to be a post-credit sequence.
Oh, it's possible. Yeah.
I could see that. I could definitely see if the chameleon scene being a mid-credit scene instead of a.
And then him
right,
sitting
the
in the
movie.
chair is the final post-credit scene. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Okay, so that was Kraven.
Thank you for taking on summary duties, and now for our summary judgments, our final judgments of whether this is a good bad movie, a bad movie, or a movie we kind of like. I'm just gonna say, I apologize if this is sort of getting ahead of ourselves. I don't know if we'll return to this topic with the Venom episode, which we're recording later. I don't know which one we're releasing first, but I think this is at the bottom of my Spider-Man without Spider-Man Sony villain films because it is so just sort of joyless. It does not have either the wacky fun of Madam Web, which is my favorite of all of these.
Yeah, I love it.
Or even, Tom Hardy's joy in making Venom movies. Clearly this is the love of his life, whether the movies are that great or not. This just feels like, unfortunately, they made a worse movie by trying to make a better one.
Yes.
And I think it's bad.
We'll talk about the Venom movies probably when we talk about Venom 3. But I feel
That would
like
make sense.
the Venom movies are feel like straightforward movies that manage to fit a lot of weirdness into the margins.
Yeah.
And this movie, for the most part, is very straight-faced and very boring. I like that there were kind of more super villains than I expected. As soon as Christopher Abbott showed up, I'm like, okay, I like this stuff. It's this one's kind of this is a fairly boring mess. It's I just don't know who it's for. It feels like destined to just be a an afternoon action movie direct cable watch. You know what I mean?
I agree that that this is one I feel similarly. It's a movie that is kind of afraid of having fun or of being fun, which is strange for a Kraven the Hunter movie.
Yeah.
And I agree that there's a surprising amount of superpowers in it for a movie that I expected to have none. I thought this was going to be just a guy stabbing guys in suits, basically, who fire guns at him. And so it was nice that they really leaned into the fact that some of the characters have extraordinary powers, but it really wants to wants you to take it seriously, which I think is a hard ask for this movie. And with the Venom movies, at the very least, they don't want you to take it fully seriously all the time.
Where does this on-screen portrayal of the Rhino fit for you? Is this better or worse than Paul Giamatti as the Rhino?
I feel like that was a little bit too much having fun instead. I mean, that's kind of the opposite. Where they were like, we're not even going to bother trying to take any of this seriously. So I don't know. I feel like I like his performance until he becomes the Rhino visual on screen, and there I feel like that visual doesn't quite work for me. He has a little waist, he's got tiny hands, but huge shoulders. So there's something very kind of like weirdly out of proportion with him that instead of creating a sense of power and strength to me, created a sense of like, oh, I hope this guy's okay.
He looks like an action figure based on a cartoon.
Yeah, like Johnny Bravo. Yeah. He's Johnny Bravo.
He does look like Johnny Bravo. Yeah, there's something very Popeye about him too. But this movie is, I was going to say, in terms of these no Spider-Man movies that we've watched, it's also pretty far down. And in some ways, like, I think Morbius is a worse movie, but I think it is a more fun movie to watch than this one. This is like,
I totally agree, actually.
Competently dull for the most part.
Yeah, at least Matt Smith has fun in Morbius.
And there's wacky stuff like when they cut to that Chiron that's like international waters. And you start rubbing your hands like, oh, he can do his bat experiments
do whatever
now.
He wants.
Yeah, or just
no one can touch him because he's on a ship out in the ocean.
He works at a New York hospital, but he has a secret man-sized cylinder full of bats in his office.
Boss, the cleaning crew was in here just dusting things, and they found this cylinder of bats in your office.
It's okay. The guy we hired is a Nobel Prize-winning scientist and also a vampire, so it's okay.
Hey, boss, your Chewy order showed up. It's full of bat chow. Where do you want me to put this thing?
I'm the guano delivery guy. I've got a call to come to this hospital and remove some guano so I can deliver it. Oh, yeah, just a sideline I have, selling the guano, yeah.
Big money in guano. Anyway,
there
Elliot, I think you had something else to say maybe at this point.
I did have something else to say at this point. I mentioned bonus content before. Let's talk a little bit about it. It's the Max Fun Drive. I've told you a couple times. I'll tell you this time and at least one more time before the show is over. Bonus content, what is it? It is a library of episodes of your favorite podcast that you can only listen to when you're a Max Fun member. And that library just grows every year. It's not like each year we clear out the vault and put new stuff in. It just grows. So the library has gotten really big over the course of the past, I don't know what, decade or more that we and other shows have been putting together bonus content. Some of these are team-ups between different Maximum Fun hosts. Some are Maximum Fun hosts taking over each other's shows, episodes with special guests. And as we've said, we've done some audio commentaries for movies. We've done extra episodes where we talk about different movies. Last year, we did 3 extra full episodes talking about the movies of Great and Clark, I believe it was, and including the all-time video game classic Joysticks. And this year, we are going back to the game playing well. Very excited about it. We are once again doing a Flop Tales, or as it's called this time, Slop Tales game, where Stuart has run us and our good friend Jubin Prang through a new role-playing adventure set in a new setting, but using variations of our beloved characters.
What are we doing?
From our other Flop
Going
Tales.
out and slopping the pigs? What is this
Yeah,
game?
you guys have fallen into my restaurant trap.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a restaurant-themed role-playing game, and it was super fun. I had such a good time doing it. We got to play characters that were a little bit, at least in my case, out of my usual comfort zone, and it was really fun. I think you're really going to enjoy it.
I also, just a side note, Stuart, I like it when you sort of provide notes of what sort of genre tone we're aiming for in there. Like, I enjoyed the dog ones because it's like, oh, you're in like a Don Bluth cartoon, and this one you're like, oh, you're in kind of an old-fashioned 3-camera sitcom set in a restaurant. And so I think that was a lot of fun to do.
And it worked out really well. So if you join or you're already a member, you get access to the entire library bonus content, every single Maximum Fun show, hundreds of hours of extra entertainment that you're going to need to get through these hard times we're living in. When you join at just $5 a month. And higher than that, you get extra stuff, but you still get access to that bonus content. And if you're thinking strictly about value, that's a great value. $5 a month for hundreds of hours of extra shows. And we're excited about the bonus content we're doing this year. It was, like I said, it was super fun. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's a great game that Stuart brought us through. And it was great to have our friend Zubin coming in and joining us because he always brings a little bit of extra comic spice. As I said while we were recording it, there's nothing funnier to me than a Zubin performance as a character who is attempting to exude confidence and authority and failing consistently to do that. So to listen to that show, to listen to all of our bonus stuff, will you please join us as a member by going to MaximumFun.org/join and either joining at the $5 a month level or upgrading or boosting your membership. And one last thing I want to talk about, this is a different kind of bonus from your membership. It's not bonus content that affects you necessarily, but it is a way that this show affects other people. We, just to toot our own horn for a minute, we hear a lot from people who say, thank you for doing this really ridiculous show because I had a hard time and it really got me through it. Or something, tragic or sad happened in my life and I needed to laugh about something that was goofy or ridiculous or dumb. And you guys helped me with it. And it is your membership that helps us to keep this show alive that makes that possible. So you're not just providing entertainment for you, you're providing the kind of escape valve that so many of us need when stressful things happen in our lives. I've had a very stressful past year and a half to 2 years, and doing this show has provided such a necessary thing for me to have fun and to enjoy myself, to be with my friends, to feel like I am making other people laugh. It's been really wonderful. And so your membership makes it possible not just for you to enjoy it, but for other people to enjoy it, especially at those times when they need enjoyment the most.
I want to hop in for a second, sorry, and just say something about gift memberships, just because you kind of bring up this area.
Sure.
It's a nice thing that Max Fun has done where you can actually gift a membership to someone else. And I know that this is like a very weird time right now. I don't think we need to get into it, but I'll just leave it there. And if you feel like it's not a time that you can do this sort of supporting, certainly understand. But these gift memberships are kind of nice because people who are in a better position, maybe are no Maximum Fun fan, can be like, you know what, I'm going to get a membership for you. And I think that is sort of a sweet thing that the network allows to happen.
Yeah, as Rabbi Hillel famously said, if I'm not for myself, who will be? If I'm only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? So do something for yourself. Do something for others. Do it now. Go to Maximum Fun. Go to MaximumFun.org/join and join or upgrade or boost your membership to keep the Flophouse rolling along, singing a song side by side.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you. Yeah, you with the Gigapet.
Me?
Do you like supporting artist-owned podcasts?
Totally.
What about limited edition gifts, hours and hours of bonus content, and more?
Sounds sweet.
Then stay tuned for Max Fun Drive 2025. www.MaximumFun.org on the World Wide Web next week.
Hi, I'm Alexis.
And I'm Ella.
And we're the hosts of Comfort Creatures.
We could spend the next 28 seconds telling you why you should listen, but instead, here's what our listeners have said about our show because really, they do know best. The show is filled with stories and poems and science and friendship and laughter and tears sometimes, but tears that are from your heart being so filled up with love.
A cozy show about enthusiasm for animals of all kinds, real and unreal. If you greet the dog before the person walking them, or wander around the party looking for the host's cat, this podcast is for you.
So come for the comfort and stay for Alexis's wild story about waking up to her cat giving birth on top of her. So if that sounds like your cup of tea
or coffee, Ella, we're not all Brits,
then join us
every Thursday at MaximumFun.org.
Shall I read some letters, boys?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
sure.
These,
individual ones. G, K, R.
DK,
That's the-
Chesterton.
Oh, man.
That's certainly the kind of joke that's worth $5 a month, right? Sorry, guys.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Oh, no. Somebody gave Elliot his stinker serum.
Yeah, well, that's what we need the money for. We got to keep buying that serum. This letter, I was about to say this episode, this letter is from Sam, last name withheld, who writes,
Oh, Yosemite Sam, yeah.
Hey, guys.
He writes, Dear Flophouse. Ooh, that varmint.
Ooh, bracken, frackin'. Sam says, hey, guys, new listener, longtime Max Fun supporter. I've got a weird prompt for you. One of my favorite small pleasures in life is the feeling of bathing after doing something that makes me feel real grimy.
Oh, okay.
Hiking, camping, yard work, etc. So whenever I'm watching a movie where a character has gone through a really harrowing physical experience that leaves them filthy and disheveled, I like to imagine how satisfying the subsequent bathing experience is. A great example is John McClane at the end of any Die Hard.
Yeah.
Shawshank Redemption tries to deliver that satisfaction, but presumably that pond was full of sewage, which seems like a real vibe killer. Is this something you can even relate to? And if so, what movies' characters come to mind? Thanks, love the show. Sam, I mean, this absolutely, this like a weird stress comes upon me when someone seems really dirty in a movie. I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to deal with that. And
All their stuff.
yeah. The thing that, I don't know if this is the one, but the thing that came to mind is in Raising Arizona when they come out there absolutely
After
slathered.
I mean, it's much like the Shawshank scene,
yeah.
right?
Same level of heroism.
I think I also similarly have had that thought of like, oh, it's going to feel so good when they wash off all that stuff. Usually think about the actors, but the end of Jurassic Park, I remember getting that feeling even as a kid, watching how the kids in that are like dirty from their adventure and just like, oh, it's going to that moment when they're like eating ice cream in the before they're attacked, I guess. It's like, oh, if only they could like bathe and clean off, then they'd really be able to recover from being chased by dinosaurs and electrocuted by a fence.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's such a like a natural human thing. The problem is when the movie shows somebody getting to wash off, you're like, when's the other shoe going to drop?
Yeah,
Is the dinosaur going to pop into the shower and eat him?
It's always it's a bad moment when you get to see it. Yeah. Oh, it's like the at the end of Gremlins when Billy when he's fighting with he's got that baseball bat and Stripe has the chainsaw and all those wood chips are flying onto him and sticking to his blood from the cuts on him. That's another one where I'm like, oh, it's gonna feel good to wash all that off for sure. But then you don't want the gremlin again, as you're saying, Stuart, to get into the shower with you because he'll get wet,
That's
multiply. Then you got a bigger problem. Yeah.
Here we go again.
Then you have to drop your shower radio into the shower to electrocute the gremlin, but you're going
That
to
kills you
electrocute
as well.
yourself. Yeah. Your only hope is that you're going to come back like Ernest, and Ernest
More
goes to
gremlins,
jail.
more problems.
Yeah. Have electric problems. Yeah.
Electric Problems. That's another good title. Okay, this is from
That's a great either band or new wave album. Electric Problems.
Electric Problems was a discarded Philip K. Dick short story collection.
Pete last.
that was his placeholder title for a lot of his books. Yeah.
It's just sort of generally what I have. Pete, last name withheld, says, "Hey, Flopsters. I was listening to your Rebel Moon episodes and thinking about something Elliot said regarding how fun is the factor that makes Star Wars work. And I was thinking that a lot of franchise stuff goes the ways of seriousness in remakes with mixed results.
Like Kraven.
Batman and Ninja Turtles kind of oscillate between serious and less so. Transformers and Ghostbusters seem to have gotten a little more sincere. The RoboCop remake was less goofy. Superman got more serious. The Mummy with Tom Cruise was a lot more dour than the Brendan Fraser one.
It's crazy that the RoboCop remake got both less goofy and also had less to say.
Yeah. I see this a lot in comics, a previously silly character storyline that someone adapts to be less comedic, although Elliot's Spider-Man and the X-Men was fun and had sincere moments, and I loved it.
Thank you.
Still see it memed.
Yeah. And you can find more of that in the Harley Quinn series, currently in DC.
There's some exceptions that come to mind. Fury Road is definitely sillier than Mad Max. Rocky IV is the silliest Rocky movie, but not the last. But as a fan of silly things, I'm mildly alarmed that things are often made less fun. What do you think it is about remaking things that causes people to take it down that road as opposed to making things that were serious before more wacky, like a wacky John Wick, John Wack? Thanks.
John Wack is a series of movies that were kind of outside the purview of the Flophouse.
Outside the purview of the Flophouse. Yeah.
Thanks. I've had so many laughs and good times listening. That I'm going to need you all to take really good care of yourselves so it goes on forever. Pete, last name withheld. I think everyone has a lot of thoughts on this. I just want to say that what comes to me immediately is like sequels in a row tend to get wackier and wackier and wackier most of the time. And then when you reboot something, it tends to be serious. So there are a lot of things that are going on here, including like cultural shifts. But I think that part of it is it's often like a reboot of like, oh, that franchise got so wacky by the end, we have to take it back to basics. And by doing that, they like make it even grittier than and more joyless than the
that's
original
definitely
was.
that's definitely been the Batman storyline going back to the Adam West Batman series, which is wacky. So Tim Burton's Batman is less wacky, but by the time it gets to Joel Schumacher sequels, it's very wacky. So they reboot it with the Christopher Nolan movies, which Dark Knight Rises is fairly wacky at times, and so they reboot it again and make it joyless. Yeah, so I think you're exactly right, Dan. You've anatomized that really well. But I think it is partly cultural shifts too.
And I feel like there's a thing where, especially when you're talking about bigger properties, that like the sillier you make it, the more likely audiences are going to struggle with how to like accept it. Like they're going to be like, is this a comedy now? And especially with certain things like people like to put things into very specific genre boxes. And when they become a certain thing, it's, I don't know. People don't know.
I don't want to sound like an old man, but I do have this sort of general feeling that people were more accepting that multiple tones could exist in something at a point, and it's become harder for people to parse that somehow. I don't know.
I think
Maybe
that is true. I would call that, if I was coming up with a theory off the top of my head based on very little, I would say that is a combination of the people who make the decisions about what is being made being people who themselves have less of a sense of aesthetic understanding in that way. And so the things that get made that audiences learn how to watch things from, especially young audiences, don't have that experience of watching something that has multiple tones in it. Even The Godfather has jokes in it.
Yeah.
Goodfellas is a very, just talk about gangster movies. Goodfellas is a like super funny movie, but also a really hard hitting and meaningful movie and emotionally rough at times. But those are both movies that are made by master artists. And I feel like in the old days, there was often a better mix, often not a better mix, but there would be a more of a mix of tones, whereas now it feels like the best you can hope for is in mainstream entertainment, seems like a really gritty thing that has some one-liners in it, or something that's super goofy, where at the very end they throw in a scene of an attempt at high emotion, to get a character arc in there. And I think I think you could put more, the onus of that I think is more on the economics of what gets made and what doesn't, and how it gets made, more than any individual creative choice that anyone is making. But that's a more complicated thing than I know how to talk about. But it does bug me some. For the flophouse, I've been Ellie Galen. But it is frustrating sometimes when something is unrelentingly dour or not having fun. Or I think there's a misunderstanding sometimes about what audiences want out of the things that they're watching and what they're going to enjoy from it. But there's also the negative pressure that we've seen so often in the past 15, 20 years, I feel like, of people who enjoy a thing that is essentially this is talking very broadly. Now I'm going to sound like Alan Moore, who enjoy a thing from their childhood and they want to continue to enjoy it and they want it to grow up with them. Yeah. And maybe that thing is not really a good fit for the kind of mature storytelling they really should be getting at this age.
And also when a lot of things are catered toward an existing audience for that thing, that the people making that product are that content are worried that they are going to, by making it silly, that they're being disrespectful for it. It's similar to the way that like a certain, let's say, vocal faction amongst Marvel fans were complaining about the She-Hulk TV show as being a comedy, and it's like, you never read fucking She-Hulk then, did you? Because that was a funny comic book.
She-Hulk has been a comedy comic for 40 years now, 35 years. Like, yeah, it's I think there's a sense of defensiveness about it that makes it harder for them to have fun, harder for creators to have fun with it, because the fans are defensively, open to feeling like they're being ridiculed. There's a theory I read like a year ago, that I wonder if it's like that there's a kind of person who is a fan of these things who feels like they have very little control over their lives, either politically, economically, any of that stuff. But this is one thing they feel like they can have control over and they can feel they can have possession or ownership of. And it creates a kind of a negative fan base for, superhero content specifically, or genre content that the people making the new stuff feel like they have to cater to, certainly. And that's but I think to go back to the original question in the thing, it is disappointing sometimes that like you can't have that they feel like they can't have fun with some of this stuff, because it's got to be serious enough that people can feel like it's being taken seriously. Yeah.
I mean, occasionally I think it can swing backwards, but it has to be something where like it probably should have been a goofier tone in the first place anyway. Like I'm thinking about how they're the terrible Michael Bay either made or produced Turtles movies, and then they made the Mutant Mayhem cartoon,
Which is great.
Which swung back goofy correctly, being like, oh, you know what? Like, I think that this is the world this works best in, a little lighter than what you came up with.
I mean, one of the reasons that
tell this story about mutant ninja teenagers.
And look,
don't turtles.
who are giant turtles whose dad is a rat. You know,
I understand the listeners out there who are thinking, like, oh, but the Eastman and Laird comics, right? I know, but like that was also
That's a pretty good straw man impression.
It was a parody of. I absolutely guarantee you, someone was thinking that.
The Eastman and Laird comics. But when Cerebus showed up,
those were started at least as kind of a parody of that sort of Frank Miller stuff before taking themselves seriously.
I mean, but those are also fun comics. Like as much as they're like more serious than Mutant Mayhem, like those are the thing that I always loved about the Eastman and Laird comics was like the characters. Like they were basically like prototypes in some ways. I don't know that Mike Mignola would say this, but prototypes for Hellboy as characters who like would go on adventures and then just be like, "Oh, that sucks. Anyway, let's go let's have a beer. Great, cool, dude." Like they spent a lot of time hanging out, you know, and things like that. And so they felt there was a lighter element that ran through that still, even as they were stabbing people. You know.
So let's recommend some like silly ones. Let's do a couple of silly ones. I know mine is a silly one.
Be a silly one.
No, you can do whatever you want.
Because I'd like to recommend Last Stop in Yuma County.
A silly one.
Are we doing recommendations now?
Yeah, we're doing recommendations.
Okay.
Is that okay, Elliot?
Yeah, no, it's fine. It was a very natural segue, but I was not quite sure we were.
So we had to gum up the works.
Driving the segue.
We had to gum up the works by asking about it. I saw this. It's Return to Movies Dance on a Plane. I saw it on a plane. It's a
continuing series of screenings. Yeah.
Very small.
See, some people do extra flights so they can get like miles or points or whatever. Dan does it so he can watch more
optimal
flicks.
viewing.
Flicks is what he calls them.
No, this is a small little contained noir. Stuff goes wrong at a diner. There's a tense standoff over an afternoon. I don't want to get too much into it because the twists and turns are the fun of it. But it is directed beautifully. Sam Raimi, I think, tapped this director to be a future Evil Dead director off of this picture. It has a small part for our friend of the show, Barbara Crampton, is in it.
Best.
Can't go wrong.
And it has some of the flavor of like an early Coen Brothers. I mean, not quite to that level, but it's in the conversation.
Or like a Red Rock West type.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what do you got, Stu?
I'm going to recommend a movie that fits within the silly theme. I'm going to recommend The Monkey, Osgood Perkins horror comedy. What was that, Dan?
That's right. I just started buttering. Can't stop doing The Monkey.
I think I just watched that episode of The Simpsons, by the way. Yeah.
Go Ray.
It was funny. The other night, the night before my birthday, I went to a pre-birthday screening of The Monkey. I dragged my buddy Dan, as well as a couple of my other Brooklyn movie bros to go see this thing. I got incredibly wasted, but I was not too drunk during the movie, so you're going to get a full-on normal Stewart review. So so let's continue reviewing The Monkey, shall we? The Monkey is...
That was the mid-review pause, the traditional intermission.
Yeah. So this is an adaptation of the Stephen King short story, The Monkey. That was also adapted as Monkey Shines at one point. But this is a movie about twin brothers who encounter a toy monkey that is some kind of death elemental that can cause the death of anything it wants when its key is turned. And the movie it's an interesting this is a director whose previous movies have all been very like grim-faced horror pictures, and this is much sillier. It's still shot with a lot of style, and it is incredibly gory, but it's very fun. Almost like it has kind of the same sense of fun as like a Final Destination movie. And the performances are all good. It manages to make Theo James not an incredibly sexy man, which is a challenge. Like, that's some heavy lifting. I think the one outfit kind of helps, but and Tatiana Maslany's in it, and she's great. I think it's it felt like a very kind of fresh take on a horror comedy, and I had a really good time. So if you're looking for kind of a silly one that I'm sure has been probably misinterpreted by people who are like, oh, why isn't this scary movie just scary? Like, well, it's a silly movie. It's fun. Just chill out.
Also, I'm sorry, I apologize for playing Flophouse Pedant just for a moment, but I believe Monkey Shines is unconnected because that's a movie about a man who had a actual monkey that's a helper because he's paralyzed.
I messed it up. Okay.
I just, so I'm shielding you from angry listeners now.
Okay, I mean they're just going to email.
They're just going to
email. Yeah, they're going to email you. And
Dan and the Straw Man, the new CBS show where he tries to stop the Straw Man.
They'll be like, "Tell Stuart he's wrong," and Dan's like, "I tell Stuart he's wrong all the time, and he doesn't listen."
I'd like to let you guys know on this occasion, so you can thank me, that if I get any emails like that, I delete them.
Oh, good. Thank you, Dan, for doing that. I'd also like to recommend a movie, and I'm also going to recommend a silly one that's also kind of a horror movie, but also pretty silly. And I'm recommending, of course, Mr. Vampire from 1985, directed by Ricky Lau, and starring, let me look at the names, starring Lam Ching Ying, Ricky Hui, and Chin Sui Ho. And this is the first of the Mr. Vampire horror comedy series from Hong Kong.
Sounds awesome.
It's set in the kind of early 20th century China, and there's a bunch of kind of battle priests whose job is to just keep it.
You don't have to tell me what a fucking battle priest does. I know all about this shit.
No, but their job is very specific to keeping vampires under control, and these are your classic Chinese hopping undead vampires. And a vampire gets loose. Unrelated to the vampire getting loose, a ghost falls in love with one of the apprentices and is trying to take him away.
Now, are they on the loose? Is the vampire on the loose when you remove the piece of paper from their forehead, or or when the piece of paper is placed on their forehead?
It's that piece of paper, or it's that there's like a bit of wax that goes on their forehead, and the paper is stuck to that. And it was produced by Sammo Hung. It's a very Sammo Hung style comedy kind of action movie, and it's just super fun. And it's one of these movies. It's very silly at times, and the action is and the martial arts are great. Some of the comedy is of the very broad comedy that you get in especially 80s Hong Kong movies, but it's super fun. So if you want to see a horror comedy that really is not taking itself seriously to the point where it's not really scary so much as it is a comedy about people fighting vampires, then I would highly recommend Mr. Vampire.
Was Mr. Baseball a vampire?
Mm-hmm.
No, he was a baseball, Dan.
Oh, okay. Hey, I think we're almost at the end here. Elliot, is there any final thought you want to share with our audience?
There is a final thought that I'd like to share with the audience. I'm just going to talk briefly because the show is ending and it's time to pack up the old circus tent and wipe off the grease paint and
sweep up the spotlight.
Sweep up and put it in our caps.
Take up my makeup.
But I put his wig back on the shelf. Suddenly I'm doing a Max Fun pledge drive donor spot. And I'm telling you that if this is the Max Fun pledge drive. This is the time of year when we talk to you about this. We're going to do 3 episodes where we're talking to you about this. And then that's it for the year. You don't have to hear about it again. If you've never been a Max Fun member, please, we ask you, try it out for just $5 a month. Again, that's the cost of 1 comic book a month. If you don't buy comic books, that's great. You've got that $5 sitting in your pocket.
I see.
And you can just do it
it's
for
like
a month.
judo. You switched it around.
Yep. And enjoy that bonus content. If you're already a member and you'd like to support a little more, we'd really appreciate you upgrading your membership to a higher level or just boosting it by a few dollars per month or so. If you support multiple shows on Max Fun, and if you do, thank you. If you support multiple shows, the amount you pledge gets split between those shows. So boosting by just a couple dollars means everyone just gets a little bit more, which is wonderful. Please do it now, going to MaximumFun.org/join before you forget. And you can look at what kinds of thank you gifts you get at the different levels. You can check out the bonus content once you've signed up. There's a lot of great stuff on there. So that's MaximumFun.org/join. And I said at the top that this is the time of year when we celebrate our members. And I know you're like, where's the celebration? I've heard a lot about what you need. What about what I need in terms of praise and recognition? Well, let me tell you, it means so much to us that you are pledging and becoming members. It means so much to us that you are supporting us as we do this show, because we really couldn't do it without you. And especially during these times when life is uncertain, the world is in chaos, there's nothing that I feel like I need more than an outlet for my nonsense. There's nothing I feel like I need more than to hear the nonsense of other people to help me remember that there is laughter and enjoyment in the world. And we really appreciate your support in doing that. We've been part of Maximum Fun for many years now, and I've always been really amazed and really impressed and really touched by the support that we get from our members and from our listeners, and it just helps keep us going. It means that we can do this show for you. It means we can do this show for others. It means that people who, as Dan mentioned earlier, cannot afford to be members right now on their own, that they still get to enjoy this show. You can gift a membership to someone, or just by supporting us, you make the show available. We want to keep this show free to listen to, aside from the bonus content, which you get if you join at $5 a month or more. And we can do that because of your support. We don't have to charge for tickets, and we're not beholden to sponsors. And I'm sure you've had some kind of TV show or movie or something canceled or pulled off the market or just removed from your access in the past year because some business was like, well, we're not making enough money off of this to justify you enjoying it. And your support of us means that you don't have to worry about that happening. We're our own bosses thanks to your support. We make the decisions thanks to your support. And we're going to keep doing this as long as we can, as long as we have your support. We can only do it with your help. And we're so grateful and we're so thankful that you've been giving us that help all this time, and that we hope you will continue to. If this is the year that you feel like you can afford to help us, please do. If it's not the year you can afford to help us, then please consider it in the future. But we ask you to go to MaximumFun.org/join and give us your support for as little as $5 a month, or boost or upgrade your membership if you feel like you can right now. And we're just really thankful for it. I would thank you all individually, but I think it would make the episode go long. So instead, I'll just say thank you very much. We're so grateful.
Insert your name here.
Thank you, Dan. Actually, that's what I should have done. And I did want to take this moment to celebrate you, the listeners, and especially the members for keeping this show alive. We really couldn't do it without you, so thank you. Go to MaximumFun.org/join if you aren't a member, and if you are, then you get to take part in that thank you. Otherwise, please put the thank you down. It is only for members right now.
I think that's all we got to say, except to say thank you also to Alex Smith, our producer. You can find him under the name Howell Doughty in various corners of the internet. He does great work for us. And he gets paid because you pay us.
Yeah, I was just on his Twitch channel this week watching a crazy Abel Ferrara movie.
Oh, nice. For the Flophouse, I've been Dan McCoy.
I'm Stuart Wellington.
And I'm Elliot Kalin, reminding you to go to MaximumFun.org/join to join. Thank you.
Bye.
On this episode, we discuss Kraven the Hunter.
It's a tight adaptation of Kraven's Last Hunt, my favorite comic book.
I don't
It's
think
not
so.
accurate. It's not really. How about Dan?
But I am putting energy out of the universe. Maybe I'll get what I want.
Oh, okay.
Manifesting is what it's called. You should have heard about it. You live in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
the
people
home
talk
of
about manifesting a lot. Can I try one?
Sure.
Yeah.
Maximum Fun
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
supported
directly
by you.